Calls. You want to go back to the
sure.
Calls?
Let's go back to the calls. Yes. Good evening and welcome to the show. You're on Acres of Diamonds with Dr. Umar Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening, caller. Let's go to the next one. Good evening and welcome to the show. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes. Good evening.
Okay. Peace, Dr. Umar.
Peace and love, sister.
This is Queen Mother Boniswa.
Queen Brother Boniswa, Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yes.
How we doing, Queen Mother? All is well. All is well, Queen. How's it going?
All right. You know, I've been trying to reach you forever. I want to get you back down here.
Well, you know I got a cell phone and I ain't got no text message from you in a while. So what you mean you was trying to? Help me with the trying to part.
We'll talk about that.
All right, all right. I'm picking with you, Queen Mother. But you know, people always say they trying to reach me. And I'm like, well, my number public. It ain't changed in 13 years. And I ain't got no text from you. So how you trying to? But that's not for you, Queen Mother. You know we cool.
Yeah, we cool. So I don't text either. So
That's right.
I text, you know.
That's right. I'm with you. I'm with you. Yes, yes.
But listen, thank you, brothers and sisters, for doing this show. This is my first time calling in. I love it. And initially, I called in with a bunch of stuff to say, not a bunch, a few things to say, but I just was soaking everything in. Because where I am in North Carolina, I've been one of the primary organizers around the Pan-Afrikan community. And we have this pattern of strong desire to do something, be self-sufficient, and, you know, do some nation building, and then it'll fizzle out. And then it will, you know, will rise up and then we'll fizzle out. So we're in a fizzling out phase. So, my brother Umar, could you address that issue? What can we do to, I mean, is it going to take like a horrible Holocaustic situation to get us moving again?
It might.
Good question.
We're going to kind of go through that cycle of fizzling out and then getting restarted.
Good question. Good question.
Some people are of the opinion that Donald Trump is the best thing that happened to black people because he is an honest, unapologetic racist. And they believe that if black people see that, that will somehow, some way spur them into action. I certainly believe that an honest racist is definitely preferable to a dishonest racist. A Donald Trump is preferable to a Hillary Clinton. But at the same time, nothing white people do to black people is going to force us to do anything for ourselves because we are absolutely in love with white folks. Absolutely in love with white folks. They can't kill enough black folks for us to get tired of them. They can't incarcerate enough black folks for us to get tired of them. They can't infect enough of us with AIDS, Ebola, West Nile, bird flu, swine flu, or the new Shanika Zika virus. Nothing they do is going to stop us from loving white folks. We are in love with them. If they jump in the water, we jump in with them. The only way we can change this is you have to have a psychological revolution. Our biggest Holocaust is not economic. It's not physical. It's not financial. It's not penal. It's psychological. Until we fundamentally change the way African people think about ourselves, our reality, our future, and our enemies, you change nothing else. And that's why when people ask me, do I think that Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy was the most insightful project I could dedicate my life to? Absolutely. Because if I dedicate my life to doing anything with adults whose minds have not been reconstructed, sooner or later, the situation will erupt because we do not respect internal racial authority and power. Absolutely not. As one Garvey elder once told me, if you want black people to work together and get the job done, put a white person in charge. So I have to start with the children. As my great ancestor Frederick Douglass said, whose 201st birthday was celebrated on the 14th of this month when I announced the school location. He said, it is better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. He's not even a psychologist, but he knew that once you destroy the mind of an adult, it is almost impossible to save it. Let me give you this point, Queen Mother. Y'all might not know this, but less than 25% of people who go to therapy get helped. A lot of people don't know this. I'm going to say it again. Less than 25% of people who go to psychotherapy will get healed. And you know why they won't? Most people are not willing to put forth the effort, the willpower, the discipline necessary to change who they are and make themselves into a better person. That's why when you deal with black folks, you have two options. Accept what you get or leave them alone, because changing them into what they need to be is usually not an option. The greatest invention of the last 500 years was not the automobile, the internet, the laptop. The greatest invention of the last 500 years was the Negro. The white man needs to get an award for the invention of the millennium, and that is the Negro, the only living organism on earth that will work against his own best interests without being paid.
Where'd that come from? Turn your radio down. Whoever's on the line,
line.
please turn your radio down. Well, why is that though, man? Like,
we've been educated, and that's how we were socialized, cultured, educated, indoctrinated. Do you realize that in the 13 colonies, the original slave states, and Pennsylvania was one, people forget that, you got enslaved Africans buried under this ground, okay? Do you realize that the only way you could get free in many of the original 13 colonies was to snitch out another black person? That was you couldn't buy your freedom. You understand? You couldn't barter for your freedom. The only way you could get free was to let me know what the other Negroes are doing. So that has stuck with us because we saw selling out and freedom go hand in hand. You see that? Our personal liberation went hand in hand with the selling out of our own people. And it's with us to this day where we say, if I have to turn on black folks to help me and my family, that's exactly what I'm going to do. That's why when Negroes say, yeah, they go a strong black family right there. I said, how you know that's a strong black family? Because you got a husband, a wife, and 2 kids. How the hell you know she ain't a coon? How do you know he ain't a coon? And how do you know they ain't raising them kids to be coons? Just because I see a black man with a wife don't mean nothing until I investigate the way they think. And let me be clear. I'm not focused on how people pray. I respect any religion. I'm not focused on what people eat. I respect any diet. I'm not focused on what your profession is, what your beliefs is. Dr. Umar is only interested in one thing, as is all other Pan-Africanists: how you think. I need to know how you think, and how you think determines whether I can struggle with you or not. Not how you pray or how you eat. But you go all throughout Philadelphia, you got Negroes that say, if you ain't a Muslim, I can't work with you. If you ain't a Christian, I can't work with you. You're not a Jehovah's Witness, I can't work with you. You're not a Seventh-day Adventist, I can't work. What the hell their religion got to do with African liberation? One of the worst things the white man did to us. He took away your culture. 2 million years of African culture the white man took and gave you 1,500 years of Muhammad and 2,000 years of Jesus. How in the hell do you exchange 2 million for 2,000? And the religion ain't the problem, because you could be a Muslim and be for your people, but it's the way in which we choose to interpret it in our lifetime. You go back 100 years ago, first of all, most of the fathers of Pan-Africanists were what? Christian ministers. But they preached a black Pan-African theology. Malcolm X was a Muslim, but he preached a black Pan-African theology. The religion ain't the problem. It's the coon in the religion that's the problem.
So when a person comes out, either in the Christian, in the church, in the mosque, or the masjid, a Christian, a Muslim, whatever, when they come out and they speak this type of language,
yes,
they're often called black nationalists.
What's wrong with being called a black nationalist? That's an honor and a privilege. And I'm not a black nationalist. I'm a Pan-African now. I'm global. I'm not just here. I'm global. So I'm Pan-African.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you broke that.
Yeah. There's nothing. Everybody, the Chinese are national. What is Chinatown? Chinese banks, Chinese groceries, Chinese homes, Chinese theaters. Everything is written in what? Chinese. You can't get a job there because they put the help wanted signs in what? Chinese, so you can't even read them. They do it on purpose. When you go to South Philly, Little Italy, everything's Italian. They nationalists. That's Italian nationalism, Chinese nationalism. Donald Trump is an Anglo-Saxon nationalist. Israel, Jewish nationalist. Why is it okay for everybody to be nationalist but the black man? Let me answer the question. The reason why it's okay for every other race to be a nationalist but us is because your nationalism destroys their nationalism. What are you talking about, Dr. Umar? I'm talking about God blessed us with the most minerally rich piece of land on the planet known as Africa. If black people say we own the diamonds, we own the oil, we own the manganese, we own the coltan that you use to make that laptop and that cell phone. 75% of all coltan comes from the Congo. There would be no laptop, cell phone, internet, none of this without the Congo. So what if we nationalized the coltan of the Congo? And by the way, coltan was the blue fruit in Black Panther movie. Coltan was the fruit that made them great. I know the technology of Wakanda was built on the, what did they call it? What did they call it in Black Panther? What was the special? What was that stuff?
Exactly the green stuff?
No. The metal. It was made out of what was the metal, y'all, in Black Panther? The metal was called whatever it was called. That was a metaphor for coltan. That was a metaphor for coltan. Yes, that was coltan because coltan made this technological revolution. So guess what? If you nationalized and said everything under the ground of Africa belongs to black Africans. Vibranium is coltan. Vibranium is coltan. And if you said all the resources of Africa belong to black Africans only, Chinese nationalism is a thing of the past, my brother. East Indian nationalism is a thing of the past. Jewish nationalism, Anglo-Saxon British, it's over. Your nationalism destroys their nationalism, and that's why black people are not allowed to be nationalists.
Where did the racism come in?
Racism came from white folks for white genetic survival, to protect their gene pool. White folks are the most genetically recessive group on earth. Okay? The white man cannot reproduce with any other woman but a white woman. The white woman cannot reproduce with any other man but a white man. Everything we touch becomes us. So you are a threat. Look at this now. Look what God gave you. See, this is why they hate us. God gave you the richest piece of land on earth, which Negroes in America don't even want because they indigenous and Native American. I saw a Negro doing the Indian, nigga crazy. Excuse me, my French. He's crazy.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay? But anyhow, God gave you the richest piece of land on earth, and God gave you genetic superiority over the earth. Any man plant a seed in you makes you. I plant a seed in any woman, I make me. God gave you the resources and the genetic superiority, but damn it, we don't want to use it for our own best interest. That's why the world hates Africa and African people. You got the physical resources and the biological resources. And this is why they got to keep us down, because the minute we decide we don't want to be down no more, it's over. And that's why we build in the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, because we might not see it in our life, but I promise you, from my school, you can quote me, from my school will come the leaders who will bring about a successful global Pan-African revolution. I promise you that.
Can black folks be racist?
No. And the reason black people cannot be racist, is because racism is about privileges and power. Yep. You ain't got no privileges and you control nothing. In order to be racist, you have to control the institution and the resources. You have to be able to grant concessions and take them back. Do you control the economy? Nope. Do you control any major industry? Do you control the criminal justice system? Black people can be prejudiced, but you cannot be racist. In order to be racist, you got to have power and privilege.
What are some of the systematic dynamics of the institutional racism in our community?
Okay, number one dynamic is most black organizations are funded by white people. So in essence, most black community organizations are white supremacist cells. They're actually cells of white supremacy. That's why when you see all these mothers against this and fathers against this, I love them. Don't get me wrong. They're innocent, but they're useless politically because you're funded by the same people killing your kids. You're funded by the same people put the guns in your neighborhood. You're funded by the same government that brings the dope in. So you have been neutralized because the people you're fighting are actually funding your movement. So that's the first contradiction. Second contradiction is white Jesus. Black people still are in love with white Christ. And as long as your deity looks like your enemy, you will always be sympathetic to your enemy's agenda. Black people are extremely sympathetic to the agenda of Europeans because we've been conditioned that our savior will look like one of them.
That's deep. And that still goes on.
And the third dynamic is all black boys are educated by white females. So the white female through the public school system is able to psychologically disarm the black male and look at her like she's a savior as opposed to a political sinner. The job of public school is to make black children think, number one, that white people actually care about them. Number two, psychologically disarm them against the evil designs of the European. And number three, public school exists to teach the black child that white people are in charge and there's nothing you or your mother can do about it.
I think that, I don't know if you agree with this, but what you were saying about white teachers for our black boys and how they talk to them in the classroom. I think that I always thought that was kind of why black men kind of are attracted to white women. That's the first woman teaching them. I don't even think they realize.
Yes, Queen. Yes, teach. Yes.
That's you said that's the first woman teacher?
For a lot of black
you.
boys is the white teacher.
I got you.
And I don't even think that you would realize that as a child,
I don't think the parents realize it.
Right.
Because 75% of our children are raised by single moms, many of whom got to work 2 jobs. By the time Donald Trump is done with the food stamps in the Section 8, they'll be working 5 jobs. Mm-hmm. So the black boy, not due to any fault of his mother, spends more time with his white school mother than he does with his own biological mother. So guess what? The teacher as leader, she endears herself to you. You start to look up to her. You start to become dependent on her. In other words, I believe that the fact that Frederick Douglass was taught early on because he was largely self-taught, but the first person to give him instruction was the white woman in Baltimore, his master's wife, right? That endeared him to the white woman, which I think had something to do with him marrying a white woman later in life as an old man. Not to ignore the fact that his wife of 50-year Queen Mother Anna Murray Douglas, a blue, black, chocolate, nappy-headed woman that bore him all 5 of his children, she died first. But as an old man, he still had to get that white woman, right? As an old man, if Frederick Douglass never married that white woman, and I know from the grave, he's thinking, that's the one thing I wish I could do over. Do you know if Frederick Douglass didn't marry that white woman? And he was an old man when he did. He was only about 10 years away from death. He would be undisputedly. He already is in my book, but he would be undisputably in everybody's book. The greatest black leader ever walked on American soil. That was one sin that he may never be able to live down. With most folks. With me, he good.
Right. How do we end racism? Can it end?
As long as there's Europeans, there will be racism. Why? Because Europeans have to fight like hell to protect their genetic survival. And because they are naturally a vampire culture, they come from Europe where there's almost no resources. In order to survive, they have to do what? Take over a host. You ever see an insect? What's an insect that has to take over another insect?
The bed bug.
Does the bed bug take over another?
Well, bed bugs kill the chest. No, I'm not saying it because I just thought it up. Like, they will, I know what you mean. You mean to plant into the other bug
to survive.
Right.
Like
remember the movie Remember the aliens?
Yeah.
The aliens had to do what? Plant the baby in a human host.
Right.
They couldn't perpetuate without taking over. Exactly. That's what. Listen. All through history, every culture did what? They create archetypes and symbols of their cultural behavior. What is the most popular archetype in European culture that has survived for over 1,000 years? The vampire. The vampire is the #1 cultural symbol, demonically speaking, in white civilization. You know why? What does the vampire do? They must suck the life
in order to survive.
That is exactly what the European does to Africa. It sucks the life. Let's go back to the pedophile situation, right? Do you know why pedophilia is so big in Hollywood and in the music industry? And remember, I said at the start of the program that white supremacy cannot be separated from what? Secret societies, pedophilia, resource control, and that other thing, which I'm not going to mention because we're on Facebook, okay? Do you know that after they molest the kids, many of those kids are sacrificed? And guess why they sacrifice them? To drink the adrenal fluid, to drink the fluid of the pineal gland, and to drink the blood of the infant. You can do the research on this. This is not just raping babies. This is drinking their blood after you sacrifice them because they believe that the only way that they can stay young is to drink the blood of prepubescent children. You might say, why did they don't rape 10, 11, 12-year-olds? They can just pay them some money. Them kids won't say nothing, some of them. They need prepubescent because they believe that once you go through puberty, and you can do your research on it, they believe that once you go through puberty, your blood loses that pure innocence that it had when you first came out your mother. So they have to drink the blood of infants. This is what these secret societies do, y'all.
Oh, this is a good question. This is a really good question. And I think that you were talking about this.
What's that?
What about the Asians taking over Africa?
Oh, my goodness. I made the comment when I was in London. Yeah. Ethiopia, right? The only African nation to never be colonized up until now. Ethiopia is one of the largest recipients of Chinese aid in the world. Ethiopia also has a female president now. Shout out to the queen. But guess what? Ethiopia better do something fast because they are becoming over dependent on Chinese support. And why is the Chinese taking over Africa? Because they studied what the white man did and they said, we're going to do it better than the white man. They are coming into Africa for 4 reasons. Reason number 1, the Chinaman is coming into Africa. China is overpopulated. I was just there a year ago in January of 18. There's too many of them. They got over 2 billion people in one country. America is only, 500 million? They got 2 billion. China is looking for unexploited lands where they can send their excess poor people. Africa is perfect. That's number 1. We got to reduce the population of China, so we're going to send all of our unwanteds to Africa. Same thing Britain did when they founded the 13 colonies. Second reason China taking over Africa, look at all the poor Africans. Can you imagine a better place to go and open up your factories and businesses where you can pay people even less than what you pay them in China? There's no minimum wage in many African countries for foreign businesses. You can exploit African labor better than you can exploit Taiwanese and Vietnamese labor. So the second reason they're in Africa, because guess what? I keep more of the profit. Third reason they in Africa is to take over the resources, just like the white man. That's why they're giving out all these loans. These are not grants. Let me be clear. The money that China is giving Africa are not grants. They are loans. You might say, why is China giving Kenya more money than they know Kenya can pay back? You follow me? Why are they giving a poor country like Ethiopia more money? Because they don't want you to pay it back. Because when you look at the contract, guess what it says? If you default on this loan, all your tea fields are mine. All your copper mines are mine. All your oil reserves are mine. And guess what? You already have an African nation that has defaulted on the loan. I think it was Kenya, but don't quote me. As a result of the default, China now owns all of a particular resource in that country. And the fourth reason that they are in Africa is to make the Africans dependent on them culturally, intellectually, educationally, and otherwise, because China plans to colonize Africa the same way the white man did. And I'm hurting by saying this, y'all. You know why I'm hurting? because Patrice Lumumba died for Africa to be free. Thomas Sankara died for Africa to be free. Steve Biko died for Africa to be free. Chris Hani died for Africa to be free. Amilcar Cabral died for Africa to be free. And after all the blood that has been spilled, Dedan Kimathi died for Africa to be free. And after all the blood has been spilled, you mean to tell me 60 years after we kicked the white man out, you're going to roll out the red carpet to the Chinese?
It's like slavery all over.
It's slavery all over. Oh, but it's different now because guess what the Chinese are doing? They're adding a little twist. They're building military bases and police stations everywhere they set up shop. I'm going to be interviewed by Djibouti magazine next week. They contacted me last night. They want to interview me because Djibouti is the first African country that has a Chinese police station. Can I ask you a question? If you are the president of Wakanda, right, you are a sovereign nation. I want to come and do business in your sovereign nation. Can you please tell me why you allowing me to bring my own police? You are a sovereign nation. Part of being sovereign means what? You control the military. But Africa is letting China bring their own police. Let me tell you what's going to happen. The Chinese, as disrespect, and by the way, they are as disrespectful in Africa as they are here. So when you read these stories in New York about the sister being beat up in the nail salon, they do the same thing in Africa. Oh, the Chinese think they own it. When you go, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Guess what? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. There's going to be a conflict. An African is going to get disrespected by a Chinese. It's going to turn into a group conflict, and the Chinese military is going to hurt one of our African brothers and sisters. It's going to turn into a civil war. Yeah. And then China going to send a whole army in, and they're going to colonize that whole country. And they're going to do just like America does. We just making your country safe for democracy.
Did desegregation hurt the black community?
Desegregation hurt the black community. However, the black community is complicit in its own desegregation. Remember, and we can go over if y'all want to. Remember, Dr. King was dead by the time the Civil Rights Bill was fully implemented, right? People blame Dr. King. He was dead. Dr. King ain't the reason we ain't got our own schools and hospitals. Do you know right here on Lombard Street, you had Frederick Douglass Memorial Hospital? All black.
Where at?
16th Powerback Rehab. There's a place called Powerback Rehab. Go down Lombard. It's between 16th and 18th.
Okay.
But I think Lombard comes up. But anyhow, outside of Powerback, you're going to see a little historical marker. It's going to say Frederick Douglass Memorial Hospital. All black doctors, all black nurses. It's gone. You know why you don't have anything black? Because the minute white folks desegregated, because they never integrated. Integration and desegregation are different. Integration, you guarantee participation. Desegregation, you remove the barriers of access, but you don't guarantee nothing. You follow me? Black people gave up their own communities and moved to be with the white man. Black people gave up their own schools and went to be with the white man. Black people gave up their own businesses. And when the white folks didn't come and say, shut your business down. You got to come work for us. They didn't say, shut the school down. You got to send your kids to our school. They didn't say, close your black hospital. Come and be with ours. We willingly did it because we love white folks. Slavery taught us to love white folks. And guess what? It made us hungry for what we could never have. And guess what? Most of us spend our whole life trying to get the one thing slavery denied us, white people's approval.
To this day, you really think that many of us walking around today, we want the approval of the other man?
Why do you think the average middle-class Negro buys a house in a white suburb the minute they graduate from college? Why do you think black men with college degrees marry outside of their race more than all other men of other cultures combined as a percentage? Is that a coincidence? Why do black women spend the greatest share of their disposable income trying to look like white girls? Are you kidding me? Why do we have a skin bleaching problem? Why do we have an anorexia nervosa problem? And by the way, anorexia nervosa and bulimia, that used to be a white girl problem. Wanting to be too skinny? Guess what? As of 1990, binge eating and intentional self-starvation is a black girl's problem. I wonder why black girls are now being diagnosed as anorexic and bulimic because they want to look skinny like them flat butt white girls. We love white folks. They are our leaders. They are our models. Why was Barack Obama so popular? Because he was a symbol that if you act white enough, white people will accept you. Black people are in love with white folks, and until we admit it, we will never save ourselves from it.
Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take a break because this is normally when we would have ended the show about 3 minutes ago, but we are blessed tonight. We're going to stay over a little bit longer. We ain't going to tell you how long, but we're going to stay over a little bit longer. You're watching and listening Acres of Diamonds. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Hey, Troy, can you read off this flyer? You got that flyer that Elliot sent you?
I don't.
All right.
Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm going to try to see if I can send it to Miss Joy over there.
You going to try to get her to read it off?
Yeah, she's got a good voice for it.
Okay.
I'm trying to see how I can send it over to you.
You know what, Palmer?
You see Palmer? You see Palmer on there?
Fireballs.
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about the other Palmer.
Facts.
Thursday, February 14th, I'm going live. Make sure you're on your Facebook. Make sure you're on your Instagram. Because on Frederick Douglass's next birthday,
Troy, I'm sending you this.
I am announcing the location.
I just sent it to you, Troy. You can send it to your wife. A little bit of music.
Is it text or is it?
It's a text.
You said it to who?
I said to Troy to send to you.
Oh, okay. I have to read it. What part?
It's two flyers. I think both of them is the same.
Is this something to come out to?
Yeah, he's having a program. That's Elliot. We ride.
If you know what a school is, keep it to yourself. How about a little respect, a little restraint, and a little control? If I say I'm going to announce it on February 14th, why do you need to tell people you know where it's at? I need you to control your inner coon. If everybody could control their inner coon a little bit better, we'll be all right.
All right, we'll go to these three callers.
I don't have to love all people, Eugene. Don't come on here with that "we shall overcome" message. Okay, I'm blocking.
That first, and then
you want to do the callers first?
I think.
Philadelphia, I'm here.
Do the announcement, then we go to the
Keep them donations coming. FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia 19132. Dr. Umar will be in the Bronx, Boogie Down Bronx for the first time Sunday. Y'all ready?
Coming back.
All right. February 17th, 4 o'clock.
February.
Make sure I get that out there when we
17th, you're going to be
in the Bronx. And February 23rd, Hamden, Hamden, Connecticut. Backed up a Sunday, then a Saturday.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome back to the show. This is the Acres of Diamonds after show.
Extended.
Pre-show now. This is the after show. Telephone numbers. I see everybody on Facebook and it's blowing up. They're texting questions. It's kind of hard for us to do what we're doing here and get out our own questions and thoughts and opinions. How about you call in? The telephone number is 215-490-9832. 215-490-9832. I even put it up on the screen. Call us up. You can have a conversation with Dr. Umar. I might not put your comment or your question out the proper way, so do this. 215-490-9832. This is open discussion. We're having a conversation, talking to the family. This is a family conversation. This is a conversation that I think that should have been had with many of us throughout the years. Conversation maybe that our fathers and our mothers, they missed it with us. I'm not on here saying that I hate white people. Dr. Umar is not on here saying he hate white people.
No, sir.
None of us in here, we're not saying that. But there is a fact that our people, man, have been bamboozled.
We missed out.
We missed out. And the sad part about it, Troy, we're still missing out. And before we go to an announcement that the Queen Joy has, I want to put this out there. And I'll wait for that. I'll wait for that part. I'm going to wait for that.
You might forget. You might forget.
It's written down, brother. I ain't going to forget this one. Joy had an announcement that she wanted to make that, the sponsor who we ride on his coattail, we ride on his platform, I should say, Brother Elliot from Time for an Awakening. He's having a beautiful, wonderful program that's coming up this week. And Joy's going to talk about that right now.
Yes, everyone. Announcing Time for an Awakening Media Community Presentation Panel Q&A Part 2. This presentation is by Khalid Rahim of New African Independence Party. 50 years of Black political representation in Philadelphia. Now is the time for an African-American grassroots, African-centered political agenda. The location, Atia Ola's Spirit First Foods at 310 South 48th Street in Philadelphia, PA, 19143. The date, Saturday, February 2nd, 2019. Time, 1 until 4 p.m. This is sponsored by Time for an Awakening Media. Admission is free to the public. Food and refreshments are available. For more information, please contact Elliot at 267-205-1570. That is Elliot at 267-205-1570, or Richard, 215-370-8095. Again,
got a show flyer, y'all flyer.
370-8095. The Time for an Awakening Media Community Presentation Panel Q&A Part 2.
And just remember, folks, you can give us a call here at the station. We do have a line of people calling, and we're going to get to you. But the number here at the station, again, is 215-490-9832. Once again, the number is 215-490-9832. I just want to, piggyback on what Jihad said on what we've been missing as Black people. It's almost like we've been missing our rites of passage, what we should have been taught as young Black men and women coming up, and I'm glad for the doctor to sit here and discuss and have this discussion that we're doing. I'm glad. It's an
awakening.
It's an awakening. Yes, thank you, Joy. It's definitely an awakening, and a breath of fresh air to hear it. Like I think you said it the last time you was here. We haven't seen another Black African American standing up for us since Martin Luther King. I think you said it was about 50 years ago.
Yeah, an organized, protracted movement for change.
Exactly, and I think that's what Black people yearn, believe it or not. And I'm glad I'm here listening. I'm glad I'm here taking this in, and I know a lot of you are doing the same thing. You wouldn't be calling, you wouldn't be, hitting us up on Facebook and Instagram and all the different media sites, and I'm glad to be here. Thought I'd say that.
Now, what about the Nation of Islam? They've been around.
I respect the nation.
Yeah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Minister Louis Farrakhan.
I rock with the nation.
No, I understand you do. I understand. But I mean, we've had some success with some of the movements out today that have been trying to make a change within our community.
Yes, and they have done some great things. But when I speak of we haven't had a leader to give us a protracted, comprehensive movement for measurable change since Dr. King, that's exactly what I meant.
Okay.
Dr. King was very much X's and O's. And although we can debate to what extent those changes brought us, nonetheless, he brought them. And we need more of that. But I think now we don't need it from without as much. It's not about begging the government for more rights. We don't need any rights. We need resources. And I think we also have to check ourselves, because until we become more accountable to the collective for our own individual bank accounts, we'll never get out the situation. Because Black people claim to care, but we don't care enough to the point where we're willing to pay a Black tax for liberation. We'll give all the money the church want. We'll pay our union dues and the police dues and the teacher dues. But when it comes to paying your dues for the Black community, most Black folks don't want no part of that. Although we'll go out of our way and pay extra taxes to live in a white suburb. Show me how ready a people are to sacrifice their disposable income for their liberation, and I'll show you whether or not they'll get that liberation. There can be no Black power without the Black dollar. There can be no Black power without the Black dollar. Remember last year I talked about how the revolution will not be financed by your oppressor? The revolution will not be financed by your oppressor. But what is every black community organization trying to do? Get financing from their oppressor. And once the white man pays you, he owns you. I don't care how many red, black, and green flags you got in the window.
Would you say is just because we culturally are used to, that's what we do. We know you have to go to college. We say you have to borrow money from the bank. And we are not culturally used to or built up or raised to do that, to finance ourselves. We say, my daughter told me